Hi, Judy Haddad, owner of Orange Purple Passions, my healing LLC, and founder and executive director of 5 Purple Oranges, which is my charity founded after the death of my son. And this is my Hit by a Truck series. The cat wants your attention. He's now eating paper that I used to try and kill a spider in here. Hit by a Truck, my series of my journey through faith and purpose after the loss of my son. So I want to finish up a little bit about my ex-husband and then hopefully never talk about him again, but he figures prominently in quite a bit of my story. So I believe I left off with the fact that Marco had sort of messed up the, for lack of a better word, the civil case, and we had to do things we didn't think we'd have to do. I thought I would have time to heal. I thought we would have time to wait for the criminal case. I was supporting myself at the time with Elon's college fund, and I hope you guys can hear me. I'm moving further back because I don't believe this camera's working, but so I was supporting myself through Elon's college fund and trying to heal and figure out what I was doing in my life. And I personally don't think we were ready to settle the civil case, but I was sort of forced into it by Marco. So his whole part of the case was separate. In Wisconsin, there is a cap of the loss of a child. Doesn't matter what the jury would do. So the cap is $500,000, which seems like a lot of money until you realize you have to split that with the father and the lawyers, and you have no job, your body's crushed into, you've lost your son, your whole life is turned around and upside down. So $500,000, that pissed me off. You can go to court, and in court, there's 2 things that would have happened. Either whatever the jury decides, they could decide an amount, and then the judge has to, whatever amount they would have decided for me and for Marco, the judge would then have to extrapolate it to the 500,000, or they would decide a percentage. So if they decided a percentage, it could have gone worse than if they had decided amount, because the fact is the juries aren't necessarily told that there's a cap of $500,000. So they could have said, oh, 5 million, and we'll give them $1 million, whatever. So I wanted to go to court though, because I had so much evidence of what a terrible father Marco was. Texts where he claimed he didn't want to see Elon because he was busy with his girlfriend. Texts where he claimed he wasn't even sure Elon was his child. Texts where he like reamed me out, and in person, like I had witnesses to the way he behaved to me and Elon, and I was just like, well, he can't win anything. So I wanted to go to court with Marco because of everything he had put me through, and I felt he didn't deserve any money. Apparently the cat wants to be part of these videos. So we thought we would be able to buy him off, and I think I had said at one point I didn't want him to get more than $20,000. Like $20,000 to him, that's a lot of money. He owed me so much money. He never paid. He never spent time with his son. He barely was a father. $20,000, let him do whatever he wants. He'll be happy. Well, I don't know what the combination of factors was that created the problem with him, but I think given that he had these lawyers from his DUI that he had to pay off, given that he had, and I'm sure they were looking for a big payday, and given that he had this very pushy girlfriend, he seemed to find these women to come after me quite often. I think he was just being fed a lot of crap in his ears, and I had told him I wasn't going to talk to him. I have a small feeling that if I could have talked to him outside of the lawyers, in a situation where I wasn't angry and displaying that anger, I believe I could have persuaded him to walk away. With $20,000 or $30,000, and he wouldn't have had to pay a cut to a lawyer. So, at one point I had to go to Madison, where my lawyer's offices were, to be deposed by my lawyer, the lawyer for the trucking insurance company, who also happened to be, and this is a story for another day, the lawyer for the DA for Dodge County. Interesting that, isn't it? And Marco's lawyer, who now is the lawyer who is deposing me, was an attorney in Dodge County who handles personal injury claims, and I had been told was a very fair person. I wanted to, don't you dare touch that phone, I wanted to smack him across the face several times. So I go up to Madison, meet with my lawyer, stay the night. He put me up in a hotel. The next day, I have plans with the friends, former barn friends, that I'm having lunch with her children. So I can't hear in the restaurant, with kids, paying attention. My lawyer calls me and he says, listen, I just want you to have a heads up. They want to sit in on your deposition. And I knew Marco was being deposed that morning. I did not know he was coming up with his girlfriend. I assumed, I did not know. I did not want to sit in on his deposition. The less I had to face that person, the better. That's hard for me because my control freak side wanted to be in there and take notes on everything he said, and hammer back. I had the right to do that. I chose not to. I get this message and I'm like, I don't know, freaking out, for lack of a better term. The thought of having to sit there and face him while I'm being deposed made me sick to my stomach. So I guess what happened in the meantime, before I got there, is my lawyer let his girlfriend know in no uncertain terms she had no claim and she would not be allowed to stay in the depositions. So this idea that they're trying to protect this man from me, makes me sick. He wasn't in my son's hospital room. Makes me sick. Once again, he just plays like he's this innocent victim. I mean, I'm still upset about the Catholic Mass for my Jewish boy. He asked for money there. God knows what he did with that money, because he certainly didn't pay any bills. I paid all the bills. Okay, so I go to the depositions. The first thing said to me, and I'll bring this up again, is the lawyer, again, the DA's lawyer, also, coming up later. I was told to just stuff it down for a while, but the lawyer for the insurance company says to me, it was pouring rain or something when he had come in, and he says, well, you know, I stayed behind a truck. I don't know where he was driving from, Milwaukee. I stayed behind a truck the whole time. It's probably the only thing they're good for. And I was like, why are you even talking about semis to me? Like, I looked at him and I was just like, you know, go to hell. I was just like, well, actually, I don't think. And then they started talking about all the things he and the court reporter, whatever you call them, were talking about all the things that trucks are good for. I'm like, you guys need to shut up now. I, at that point, had a real hard time with sitting, and the cat is about to knock down my video. I had a real hard time with sitting at that time. I couldn't sit for long periods of time. I was under a lot of stress. I was under a lot of pain. Walking was fine. However, I walked the mile, a little bit over a mile from my hotel to the lawyer's office, because walking, again, felt a lot better than sitting, but I also didn't want to, I didn't want them to see me walking. I had a feeling like someone's going to twist that. It's so stupid that that's what's going through my mind, that someone's going to twist this around and say, I'm okay. I was not okay. So that same day, the other couple involved in the crash were also being deposed, and I think I was the last to go. I do not do well under these circumstances. I get very angry. I get very, like, as I'm talking to you, I can feel the nerves. Like, I get dry mouth, I get angry, I don't cry. I can't, for me, crying is a very personal thing. I would have loved, a friend told me, just being that grieving mother, let them try. And I was like, I can't be that person. I can't be that person. That's not who I am. So I was angry. So one of the things Marco's lawyer asked me was, did I feel that I could manipulate Marco, and that's why I was with him? And I was like, you know, he's totally got you fooled. He's an intelligent man. He just didn't have the advantages that you and I had. And then when he did have those advantages, when marrying me basically gave him those advantages, he didn't take advantage of them. So, like, you know, I looked at him and I'm like, don't try that crap. Don't try that. Oh, poor Marco. He was a grown-ass man. A grown-ass man. He was, when this happened, over 40. Like, don't try that bullshit on me. So, anger came through. I found out during the depositions afterwards, when I met with my lawyer, I believe it was afterwards, that not only did Marco, like, his feeling was Marco sensed a loss, but a loss of what could have been when Alon was 18 and finally decided to try and spend time with his father. And it's like, you didn't know who that child was. You didn't love that child. So you expect him as an adult to all of a sudden recognize you as somebody who's supposed to be in his life? No. The other thing was that he, all the time he wasn't paying us, he was putting his nieces and nephews on his taxes. So again, defrauding the government and getting a crap ton of money back from it. Like, these were his dependents and he was getting money back, and then of course not paying us. He always found ways to hide money. I never took him to court again for child support, because he worked out with his bosses to pay him in cash. He got tipped thousands and thousands of dollars weekly in cash. He was doing this bullshit with the IRS. There were so many things that I could have turned him into ICE or the government for that I did not. So again, I take the high road, and it just kills me because I can feel it biting me in the ass. I found out also because I called them often from the sheriff's office, that he never once, not once, Marco, not once called to check on what was going on with the criminal case. If you truly cared about your child and what you lost, don't you think you'd want the man who killed and prosecuted? Like, the greed of it all made me sick. The greed of it all made me sick. He was dealing with nothing. This sounds awful to say, but it's true. His life literally didn't change for the worse. In his mind, because I know how Marco thinks, it changed for the better because now he no longer had to pay me and he no longer had to try and seal on and change his schedule and give up his precious money and give up his precious basketball time, whatever it was. His life, to say that as ugly as it is, it was not negatively affected by this loss. I'm not saying he wasn't in pain. I loved how his lawyer sent me these questions I had to answer before the deposition, and it was all about, did I feel my loss was greater than Marco's? I can't say that. Do I know that it's true? Yes. Alana and I spent every second together that he wasn't in school or I wasn't at work. So you tell me. This was like my life was wrapped up, inextricably intertwined with my sons. Marco wasn't ever in the picture. I did not say that, but that would have been my answer. The questions he asked were so insulting. I've put them away and forgotten about them, but at the time, I would get like enraged. Not good. I'm sure my lawyer hates me as a client. The rage. I couldn't get rid of the rage. So sometime after about 9 months after we settled the civil case with the trucking company and that other family and the insurance company and the health insurance company, we had the money in trust and we had to settle with Marco. We couldn't because I finally got through to a prosecutor down here, gave them information to help them prove that he broke the conditions of his arraignment. I don't know. See, that's the legal stuff I'm fuzzy on. Parole, probation, arraignment, like his bond conditions. So I was able to prove that he broke the conditions of his bond. They arrested him. He was remanded. He was given a sentence of 2 years in prison. He served 1, got out early with good behavior. So we had to wait for that. He had already continued this case. So like the DUI case, I think I told you, was maybe a year and a half before Alon was killed. So he had already kept continuances, and now finally he was remanded. That made me so happy. I felt good knowing he was in prison. What I didn't do, and which I had, is sign up to find out when he was released, who his probation officer was, what are his conditions of parole. I believe I asked my lawyer to do it because I was afraid for my life at this point. Marco had stalked me in the past. He had admitted it to the cops. When I called the cops, he had more or less set up surveillance around my home. So every time I'm in my house, if I smell cigarette smoke, I always think it's him. He had started smoking again, apparently. I was worried. I was truly afraid he was going to get a gun and kill me. At one point, I was truly afraid of that. And I love shooting. I would never want to shoot another human being. I don't own a gun, but that was a time in my life where I thought, if I'm going to get a gun for protection, I don't have a child here to worry about, grabbing it accidentally. That might have been the case. So we go to, it's April of 2000, and 2016. This criminal case has not been adjudicated yet, and we have to meet in mediation. So April 2016, I'm to meet in Madison. Same mediator who we used for the civil case. I can't stand him. Maybe I have a thing about old white men, I don't know. Just the arrogance. And I'll explain that later with the civil case, but there was this whole thing about they all wanted to like just be done before lunch, and it's like, So we now has a new office. I decided to make a trip of it, and I spend the night, and I plan to then go to Dodge County, and I don't want to talk about this now, but I spent some time at the scene. I believe it was the first time I actually spent time at the scene of the crash. So, okay, so we meet with the mediator. I don't want to see Marco. I'm like freaking out. I don't want to see Marco. I don't want to see Marco. I don't even see his lawyer come in. Maybe he did. I don't know. These were different offices, but I knew that they were windowed. I had talked to my lawyer. So originally my plan was $20,000. That's it. That's all he deserves. Then we decided $30,000 because the lawyer takes 30, gives him $20,000. And then in my mind, I'm like, all right, let me just 10% is highest I'm going to go. $50,000. As I said, $500,000 is the cap. That's what you get for a lawn. I knew I had to pay lawyers' fees. $50,000. That's as high as I want to go. So we find out in mediation that Marco's not there because Marco and the lawyer couldn't get a hold of him. And I don't think the lawyer had ever even met him or really cared about him, or could never get a hold of him. My impression was when Marco was in jail, the girlfriend was pulling the strings. That's sort of the impression I got, that the lawyer wasn't going to put any work into it. It wasn't his case. They weren't local. He wasn't going to make any money if it went to trial. So that was my feeling. By that point, I'd sort of relaxed a little bit. I'm like, I'll go to court. But it was April of 2016. I knew I had tickets to a convention in June, and I hadn't booked plane tickets yet. And if I have a court case, I already knew the dates were going to be in June. And so it was kind of it's been stressed this whole time. There's no other way to put it. So we find out then that Marco is in detention, awaiting deportation. I'm not going to get into I honestly, at this point, I don't even know his real name, his status, any of that. Like, at this point, I don't even want to, I'm done. I don't want to talk about him. I don't want to talk about, what I know, what I don't know, how stupid I am, whatever. It's done. It's over and done with. I have no connection to him. That's the one sad little gift I've received from Elon's death. Because I now just hate him. So he was awaiting deportation, or so we found out, and I was like, oh my God, thank God, let him go. Let kick him out of the country. I don't even care. Cause I don't, with ICE, who knows? They're deporting everybody. Just get rid of him. So, we have this mediation, and I was just fighting with the mediator every time. I'm like, the mediator was bullying me to try and settle. I'm like, no, stop it. You have a happy marriage. I did not have a happy marriage. He's an asshole. He wasn't a father, blah, 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 blah. I have all these texts about, just terrible texts. I don't even want to share them with you. They're so awful. And I'm like, no. And then finally, I think I did agree I actually don't remember now because I'm trying to black it out. But I think I agreed to $50,000, knowing he was going to get about 30, and then to him, that's a shit ton of money, but also to him, it's gone. It's gone like that. As soon as we were divorced, he had two brand new pickup trucks within 2 years. So yeah. And wasn't paying us anything. So I just knew that it would go like that. He's, you know, let him go to Mexico, whatever. After we're done, the lawyer's like, oh, you know, you could have gotten away with like $45,000. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? I would have been much happier with that. It is what it is. That was my math. I did not do the math well, apparently. So at the end of the day, I'm done with it. I don't have to worry about it. Week later, maybe? I don't know. My lawyer had the checks, so the checks were cut right away because my lawyer had the money in their trust. And Marco started contacting me, and I just couldn't believe it. Did he honestly think that the reason I wasn't talking to him was literally because I was told by my lawyer not to communicate with him? Like, what world is this man living in? Oh, I see, I can feel like the tension. I'm hunching. So, yeah, so he started contacting me, and after a while, I didn't answer, and then I think I blocked his number. And he was calling, he was texting, and part of me really wanted to know what he really wanted to say, but part of me thought, you don't have to ever talk to this person again. If you express what you need to express, he's not going to listen anyway. You need to let this go. Being done with that part of it freed me to spend all my time worrying, but spend all my time focusing on the criminal case. And that is sort of what I wanted all along. To their credit, the investigators in Dodge County were on top of things to the point where I knew that although I wasn't constantly pushing and asking and nagging about the case, I knew they were working on it. So I had that piece from them that I could take care of this crap with Marco and then turn my focus to that. And that's a story for another day. So thanks for watching.